Okay, we're going to call this meeting of the Mansfield School Building Committee to order. It's Thursday, September 9, 2021 meeting. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the August 26th meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the August 26th minutes? Thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Anybody? Okay, thank you, Tony. Any corrections to the minutes? If not, then you can signal your approval of the motion or to approve the minutes. Give me a sign. And any opposed or any abstentions? Okay, Kathy, we can't see you, but hopefully we will mark you down. I think it probably is a yes, but if I'm incorrect, you let me know, please. Okay, that brings us to the OPM update. Adam or Scott? Adam, are you taking that?
Yep, I'll take that. So just to give sort of a high level update of where we're at with things. Let's share my screen here. So as part of the meeting packet, just included a slightly updated version of the high level overview, kind of looking forward the next couple of months as to what you might expect on site. So a lot of it is still on-site set prep work for site elements. You can see that there's the 2 geothermal wells drills out there. They've been moving through, and that's projected to continue out until October. The big focus, insofar as the building is concerned, is still on the foundations, and we were pouring concrete. There was a decent sized pour yesterday across the 3 areas of the building, and that's really what's driving the critical path. And then later in October, we'll start to see steel elements moving up. In general, the site was responding well to, we've had a lot of big storms and rainfall the past couple of days. So especially there was after the hurricane, and then there was another the remnants of Ida, but the site's still performing well, and we're not seeing any issues there, as well as the start of school. So between last meeting and this meeting, start of school's popped up, but Newfield has done a good job of prepping the necessary elements, widening the bus turnaround, getting the mulch laid, and the swing sets installed. Just reaching out with Principal Lauren there. It seems like things have gone well, so that was much appreciated. And then just in terms of project documentation, still a heavy focus on submittal reviews and answering the requests for information from the various subcontractors, and trying to make sure we're as timely as we can be in terms of releasing materials for procurement, getting ahead of some of these long lead items, and keeping the wheels greased. It does lead into some discussions of some other sort of discussions we've had about provincial betterments. So as you can kind of see from the list here that we had in the packet, there are discussions ongoing about interior educational displays. Subcommittees being formed, and discussing that insofar as what we can do in the building to bring forth the net zero elements and that kind of thing for educational purposes. We're looking to schedule a meeting, I believe, this upcoming week with the Allerton and ABS for the energy dashboard, to see what they might be able to provide that we already bought with the project, as compared to CMTA's proposal for an energy dashboard that was $125,000 plus, I think it was $2,000 every year thereafter to maintain it. In addition to some other items that have been coming up recently. So talking with superintendent about the room signage and providing better wayfinding there. Nurse's office windows as part of the ongoing discussions with school staff, and making sure that the spaces fit what the end use is going to be. Mechanical room vision panels. There are some vision panels already in the contract, so students could look into the mechanical room, but we're looking to see how they might be affected differently, or maybe brought down shorter for shorter students, maybe putting some graphics or colors or names to equipment in the mechanical rooms to make that a more educational experience as opposed to just a window into a boring room. Electrical vehicle charging stations has come up, and making sure that although EVs charging stations are not part of the project proper, that the infrastructure for conduit and whatnot makes sense for the anticipated use in future years. And then two other items that have come up recently are a potential outdoor storage shed for bikes, scooters, and toys for the pre-K and K students, as well as looking at some potential a different curtain at the stage area. So in case that space could be utilized more effectively for educational purposes, as opposed to just the stage for performances and things. So those are some of the items that have come up, and as we go through those, this table will fill in once we get a better sense of costs and impacts and whatnot. The other element that I had was just a quick update on the tree and arborist situation at the southern portion.
This page, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just go ahead, Tony.
We recently had a forum with Senator Chris Murphy and DOT and UConn and WRTD, and there's a real push over the next 12 years to fully electrify the bus fleets. And that would include, to some extent, school buses. So I'm wondering, as we look at conduit for electric charging, if we don't need to do something bigger to accommodate school buses. I know Kelly raised this question in that meeting, so I don't know exactly where we stand, but this does seem to be something that is truly underway.
I would anticipate, Tony, that the main charging stations for the bus fleet would be where they're housed and at the bus lot itself, and that you would anticipate that they would be able to do their morning runs without having to recharge. Now, with that said, you may have buses midday coming to pick up students. It may be advantageous, although to potentially look at the possibility of having maybe a single charging station if a bus ran into an issue. But yeah, I don't think you'd want to do anything extensive. I think the major charging would happen within the bus maintenance and storage lots themselves.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we had that in mind.
Kelly or Richard, did you have something to add to that?
I was going to say something pretty similar to what Scott said. So,
yeah, I just want to add that we did discuss this during the job meetings, and Alan Corson also participated in the discussion. I think we were talking about maybe 8 potential charging stations or so, and we want to make sure that the conduits are adequately sized to serve those 8 charging stations. We also had talked about putting a meter on those, or making sure that there's a meter on those circuits so that the school is not penalized. Remember, it's a net zero school, so we don't want people coming around and just charging their vehicles because it's free and then penalizing the school for energy consumption. So they will be metered separately. But as far as buses are concerned, I would agree with Scott. I think we would expect them to be charged in their bus storage facility. I will look at maybe making sure one is available for a bus should it be necessary.
Yeah, with that said, Richard, we might want to run a conduit to the bus drop-off lane, because I don't think a bus necessarily would want to try and get into either the parent drop-off or public lot. So, just for the, event that you might need one in the future, maybe there's a location on the bus lane drop-off, maybe prior to arriving to the school on that side, close to the ones that we would be providing for the passenger vehicles. Maybe we just run some conduit out to a point there as well to give us the future option of being able to at least place one along the bus lot or the bus entry drive.
And all this is a good sort of characterization of the type of discussions we're having at some of the weekly construction meetings and things, because we don't have a crystal ball as to what we might want to do. Is it 4 stations, 8 stations, what the state may or may not require, that sort of thing. So the focus is on trying to put in conduits which are easy to resolve, and some of that backup infrastructure, so we're not trying to exactly guess what we want or need. We're more flexible and prepared for whatever might come down the road. Anything else on betterments?
Chris?
Yeah. Well, first off, Tony, thank you for bringing that up. I think that's really a critical thing, and it's the kind of stuff that it becomes a woulda, shoulda, coulda later on. So I'm glad to hear at least we're making some motion in that direction with the idea of a conduit, as Scott said, and if we can actually do it, all the better. But frankly, the more, the better. And even to just go way beyond, this will now become one of 2 schools instead of, one of 4. And so it makes it more of a hub, and maybe it becomes, as ridiculous as this sounds, but it's the sort of thing that can happen without you realizing it. This becomes where the buses live later on, because my gosh, it makes sense to leave them there instead of driving them all the way back up to the north end of town. So at the end of the day. So anyhow, that's one thing. I did want to thank you, Adam, for making the ABC. It's becoming clear, but I keep it up and it will stay clear for me. And then a couple of other quick notes on there were the second item, the energy update, the energy dashboard of, please don't tell anybody that we heard this price of $125,000. It's just so outlandish to me that when you talk to these other guys, maybe they know it already, maybe too late, but it just made me think, goodness, don't let them hear that number.
But
and another- Go ahead.
The Allerton dashboard is already included in the contract.
Oh, good. Okay. I'd forgotten that piece. Another thing that I've been, I'll say, arguing for, Adam, and maybe you can help make this happen in some fashion. I had asked to have some glass spots in the floor so that we could see into the floor. And as engineers, you guys kind of know what's going on. As architects, you know what's going on behind the walls, but you've got to pretend for a little bit that you're a kid and amazed again by what goes on inside these walls, and think about what Kelly's objectives are in terms of getting the kids really engaged with what they're involved with, or the town has made happen, and so forth. And so so maybe a glass floor is not in, if there's a particular point where we could put a 2x2 piece of glass, terrific. But hey, how about less expensively some spots in the ceiling where you could look up and even flick a switch or do something that made a light go on above. No, there's no action. It doesn't mean we don't have to have action all the time, but just to see the pipes that are labeled, yellow and red and blue and whatever else, it's cool for a kid to have a little bit of a grip on that, just like it is cool for us to think about what goes inside our bodies. And again, for kids to think about that. So I really would love to have your eye on that, Adam, without any naysaying from Scott, who sometimes can be a little, anyway, but just think if there's a cool junction somewhere that you notice, that'd be a cool place to put, instead of a acoustic panel in the ceiling, to put a see-through something.
That's I think that's the substance of a lot of the various conversations with the mechanical room.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I'm psyched about the windows, and I'm really excited about the windows and visibility for the kids. It's much more exciting. And the other piece than you realize, and the other piece of it is that you forget, is that this happens year after year after year. This isn't just you knowing that it's there. It's a new kid next year, and then it's a new kid the year after that, and another one the year after that. It's constantly renewing. So it's just an opportunity that we should not miss.
Very much agree.
Richard?
Yes, so we do have vision panels into the mechanical room. And quite frankly, mechanical equipment is boring. Unless we do something to
These damn
highlight-
architects, God, they just don't get it.
I do get it, Chris, I really do. We can make it exciting. We can make it even museum-like with labels, with colors, even with lighting, and even push buttons to illuminate features so that people can see what item that you're talking about. We have a brainstorming session for our educational walls discussion, or potential features, this coming next Tuesday, I believe, at least according to my calendar. So I know that there's a subcommittee, a group that's going to be participating in that brainstorming session. So those kinds of features, Chris, should be identified in that brainstorming session as possibilities. And then we can put together a proposal on how to achieve that. But I do get what you're saying, Chris, I really do.
And Grace is on that subcommittee, so we can bring it up. Okay, other questions or comments for Adam? So at this point, Adam, there's nothing to be, no action to be taken on any of these ideas. It's still, a lot of these things are still being fleshed out.
That's correct. No, this is largely just a sort of keeping everyone apprised of some of the other discussions that might turn into additional items we put into the project or change orders or what have you. Sort of coming down the road type of items. We do have some items for decisions later on in the meeting, but yeah, this is just keeping everyone in the loop. The other item I had for tonight was just an update on the trees. So in the packets, there's a draft RFP that's been put together. It does include some of the items we talked about last time, including a potential deductive alternate for maintaining understory versus not maintaining the understory, and we can have a better sense of making that decision on, we save a bunch of money by not maintaining and we plan later, we have that option at our disposal. So if anyone has any comments now, that'd be, you can mention them, or they're going to come up later, but this is just a few other items we need to coordinate with the town logistically, and then the intent is that we would bring it back to the committee for signing off on at the next committee meeting, and then putting it out to bid.
Okay. So that is included in the SharePoint is now there, so the committee members can look at it.
Yep.
Can I
Okay.
ask a question about this?
Yes, Tony.
Yes.
This is just for information. The requirement is they leave stumps of 1 to 2 feet high.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, why leave stumps?
My understanding from the arborist, and this was echoed by the town tree warden when I spoke with him, was that you don't want to overly disturb the root base of adjacent trees. So if you've got a sound tree here and some smaller trees that are going to stay, and the one tree that needs to come down, if you remove the stumps, you start displacing a bunch of soil, you might interact with their root system and might cause inadvertent damage. So rather than ripping out the stumps entirely, or leaving stumps that are 4 feet high, or leaving stumps that are down to the ground and someone might trip over, the discussion was to leave it at 1 to 2 feet. So you maintain the integrity of the soil around good trees, but not leave this, giant eyesore of a, massive half tree.
So they become seats for kids.
That's possible if there are kids traipsing around the woods.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else in the trees?
Any other questions? All right. In that case, then, Adam, does that conclude your report?
It does.
Okay. Then we will turn it over to Richard.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. The project is proceeding quite nicely. Just to put it in perspective, the project is about 4 or 5% done on the site, so that we still have quite a ways to go. Newfield is continuing to monitor the schedule and making adjustments within the schedule to ensure that the end date is met. I did mention the brainstorming session that we're going to be having on Tuesday. That's pretty much it. I don't know, Adam, if we had reported earlier about the unforeseen soils, the topsoils that were discovered on the site. Have you talked about that before? I guess not. So,
Adam,
Adam,
you're
you're-
muted. You were,
Sorry about that. Yep. No, that's something coming up in the construction change directive later in the meeting. But you can talk about it now.
well, this is not unusual. Sometimes we do encounter things on the site, even though we do geotechnical borings to determine the nature of the soil. Sometimes we encounter things between those borings, and that was the case here. During the excavation of the site for the footings and foundations, which are quite significant, the contractor did discover that there was a pocket of unsuitable material, meaning organic material, that is not suitable for the footings of the canopy, which is where this area is. So not knowing the exact extent of this unsuitable material, the best way to handle it, which we'll talk about later, is a unit price basis, so many dollars per cubic yard, to remove that material and then install suitable base material, compacted fill. So there is a strategy to address this issue, but we can talk about it during the change order discussion. That's the end of my report.
Okay, questions for Richard? Okay, then construction update. Al, you can unmute and okay, Al, you turned off camera, but you're still muted.
Sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Okay,
All right.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I do have some photos, if I could share a screen. Share screen.
Up at the top of your screen, it should say, or either at the top or the bottom, share screen, just click on that.
Yeah. All right, so the first photo here is a setting of the fire protection water tank. The water tank came today. The hole was excavated the past 2 or 3 days. We got the stilling well. This is for the pump, the fire pump. It's the well for that holds the water for the pump. That came. All dead men came. The hole was prepared. Let me see if I got any more pictures there for you.
That's an excellent photo, by the way. Al.
Thank you.
Now, how did you take the shot? Was that for the drone?
This was the drone, yeah. Blow that up, sorry. It's taking a while for these to load. That's still drone footage. Look at that a little. This is an aerial view of the site.
Uh,
Al, I
Stop
think
sharing.
you stopped sharing your screen.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
There we see it.
So this here is an aerial view of our project. It's missing the geothermal wells and the pump, the water storage tank that gets buried over here, which we've already seen. But you can see this is the retaining wall between the admin area and the lower level of A, B, and C. They've got this wall poured over to this point, and they've started stripping the walls today. They've also have the footing in for the balance of that retaining wall, which goes here. They have the frost walls poured on the west side down to this point. And they are pouring footings tomorrow. I'm sorry, they're building this wall tomorrow. These footings are poured. And then they're going to be building the footings around that little L next week. So concrete wise, it's coming along good. He's supposed to finish up the majority of this inside work in the next 2 weeks. And that gives us about a week to do our survey of our anchor bolts and make sure we're ready for steel that comes on. They're mobilizing on the 1st, so you probably won't start setting steel until the 2nd or so. But, you can see the retaining pond over here. This is our temporary detention pond. It had very little water in it after all the rain we had last night, which was very good to see. Again, the site is really drainable. So they're not. Now, was there another shot you had, or did you just have these 2 drone shots? The one of the tank and this one?
I did have more, but I think I'll have to share every single screen, right? Yeah, Al, can I see organic material in this shot?
Maybe.
Is it in the right corner?
Yeah, it's up by the office, by the trailer.
Okay, I have it here again. I'll share the screen on that. I have to get back to the regular screen. I'm having a hard time with the screen. Let me share.
It's okay, Al, just do stop. Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Can you see over on the right-hand side where my mouse is?
Yes, yes.
That's the unsuitables, the unsuitable pit right there. It doesn't go in, it doesn't affect the foundation, but there are sidewalks and stuff in this area, and that's why they wanted to get it removed. And we didn't know how far it went either. So we theorized that possibly when they built the portable classrooms, or the last addition that they did to Southeast School, they may have scraped off the topsoil and just dumped it in this area. Right. Because this was wooded, behind the buried water tank. And that's what we were told too. The organic material that was under the portable classrooms got scraped up and dumped into a hole. So the organic material is not necessarily bad. It's not suitable to bear any weight. That's all. You could still use it in some areas. But that's it for my presentation. Any questions?
Questions for Al? I think from that overhead shot in particular, you can start to see the outlines of the building. Since that just makes it a little more real, I guess.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, then if there are no additional questions for Al, we can move on to the discussion on the potential change orders.
Yep. So we've got 3 items on the docket for tonight. The first one, here, I'll share my screen so we can all look at it together. The first one is potential change order number 11. It's some changing of some pipe sizing for $2,000, $2,002. Basically, this is to ensure that the piping going into mechanical systems operates at the efficiencies that we need and want as part of the design. So basically just increasing some pipe sizing diameters from 3 to 4 inches and 2.5 inches to 3 inches. Richard, do you have anything to add to that, or is that pretty well characterized, this
Yeah,
PCO?
that's a good description, but maybe I can add a little bit. So as part of the shop drawing review, subcontractors submit their details, their equipment they're proposing to use, including pipes, whatever. And this particular discipline, these pipes are part of the geothermal heating and cooling system. And whenever a subcontractor submits shop drawings or their samples, we have the appropriate consultant to review it. In this case, it was Kohler Ronan that reviewed their submittal, and then they discovered in that submittal that the pipes that were specified were actually too small. So they took that opportunity in the shop drawing review to correct those pipe sizes, which does end up as a change order. So that's the background information. It's the appropriate thing to do. There is a cost associated with larger diameter pipes. And so we reviewed it, Kohler Ronan reviewed it, I believe Colliers has reviewed it as well. And we're all on board that this is the appropriate cost.
Chris?
So Richard, is this, I get it, it's a change order. Is it considered a mistake? I mean, how is this? It happened because Kohler Ronan initially spec'd the wrong pipe?
It's not a mistake. It is a change before the installation. So it's part of the review process. It's a justifiable increase in cost. I'm not sure how Colliers will characterize it. I suspect Colliers will probably characterize it in some way, maybe as a, but in my mind, it's not really a mistake. A mistake in this industry is when you actually install something and then have to correct it. But this was caught way before installation and way before even the material was ordered.
But if I understand it correctly, Kohler Ronan spec'd the smaller pipe on the first round.
Yes.
And then when they looked at their own work in more detail and said, oh, whoops.
That is correct.
Okay. And it's not a mistake. Okay.
Adam, maybe we go through all 3 of these and then we'll take motions on each.
We can do that, sure. The second PCO is PCO 15. This is actually a credit. So for utility pole, scope originally contemplated the contractor installing the utility pole on the school side of the road. Eversource actually required that they perform that work themselves as part of their tie-in system. So the fee that was already approved for Eversource to do their work contemplates this pole. So this is just money back to the project for the contractor not needing to install a utility pole.
Okay, so that's a credit, this one. So
And the last item is a construction change directive. So this is the first one we have for the project. This is for the aforementioned organic soils, the unsuitable fill that we were talking about. Effectively, this is a way where we're directing the contractor and changing the contract, but we don't have the final number yet. So we're not approving some exact lump sum. This is the approval based on the unit cost that Richard had mentioned earlier for that one area, that localized area adjacent to the entrance there. So in approving this, that would allow Newfield to go ahead and perform the work, and then we would track how much soil was removed. The geotechnical engineer would review to make sure that we're meeting the requirements for the pavement that's getting put down, and that the suitable this fill that's getting put back is suitable, and then that cost would be quantified and wrapped up in a change order later on once all the quantities are known.
okay, questions on any of these three items? Chris?
Yeah, I'm just curious on this, is that a net cost, the 71 bucks? Is that to replace it as well with a suitable material? That wasn't totally, Scott's nodding. Thank you. Okay.
Yep. Yep, it's removal and off haul and replacing
I
it with
thought I
controlled
read
fill.
it somewhere, but then I wasn't, oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, and
Yep.
replace with controlled fill. I did see it. Okay. I went back to find it and I couldn't find it. Thank you.
Okay, other questions on any of these three items? Steve?
Yeah, is the organic material suitable for topping playing fields? Like when we have to, grade out fields for grass, would this be considered topsoil and should we stockpile it and use it? Or will we have enough stockpiled elsewhere we won't have to go out and buy any later?
Looking at the photos, it looked like it might not be exactly topsoil. Al, what did you see when you were pulling out the initial portions of it?
Yeah, it's a mixture of topsoil and other debris. It could be roots and parts of trees, which is wood. So I mean, if it was screened, it would probably be an okay topsoil to use.
Is it worth retaining it on site in case we need it, or is it just in the way and it'd be cheaper in the long run just to get rid of it and buy better stuff?
Yeah, this price here is to move it initially over to the transfer station. And what happens with it from there, I don't know. But this is the excavate it, haul it over to the transfer station, and then infill the hole with something, with some structural material.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, if there, Chris, you have another question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Al, you remind me, we've talked about using the transfer station in the past for staging and so forth. How much are we, or do you anticipate using that territory, the transfer station space? And how much have you?
Well, we're using it primarily for topsoil. That's pretty much the only thing that's going over there. This Unsuitable will go down there, but it's not hazardous. It's just not very good topsoil. You know what I mean? It'll be in a separate pile.
And do your plans call for any future storage of anything, whether it's steel or anything at all?
Not at this time. I think we have, we're going to start getting more and more of the site back. We're going to be reclaiming some of the areas that are being excavated right now. So as we go, we'll get more and more storage areas. So I don't anticipate we're going to use anything over there except for the site contractors material.
Good enough. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so then we would need to have motions to approve each of these change orders and the construction change directive. So is there a motion to approve PCO 11, which was for the pipe, the increased pipe size? Okay, thank you, Rich. Is there a second? Thank you, Chris. Any last discussion? Okay, if not, then all in favor of approving PCO 11, please give me a sign. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Then is there a motion to approve PCO 15, which is for the credit for the one utility pole? Thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Mary? Any last discussion? Then all in favor, give me a sign. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Okay, and then finally, the last item is the construction change directive, the CCD 1R, to remove the unsuitable fill in the organic material and replace with controlled fill at a cost of $71.50 per cubic yard. Is there a motion? Someone make that motion. Thank you, Rich. And second, Mary. Any? Okay, if we're ready to vote, give me a sign.
Sorry, a quick estimate
Oh,
on how
yes.
many yards you think it might be? Al, do you have a sense? I mean, is it 6 yards, 10 yards, 50?
Al, you're muted.
Yeah, there's really no way to figure out what is below what we can see, you know. I would assume it's the area of the portables minus I don't know, a foot to take the organics off.
Yeah,
If you can see my screen, this was some image that came in the initial
I saw that.
RFI to kind of characterize the location. So it's not this sprawling football field of dirt that we're removing. It's largely underneath the pavement areas here.
okay, thank you. I just want to know that it's not going to run into like $50,000 like the tree removal enterprise.
No, I wouldn't. If it got to the point where we were like, wow, this is bigger than we thought, we would probably stop and say,
This is bigger than we thought.
yeah. So,
Okay. Thanks for that clarification then. So we have a motion and a second to approve this CCD 001R. All in favor? Give me a sign. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Okay, so then I'll also pass unanimously. I heard something, but guess not. Okay, then that concludes everything on the agenda. Is that right? Adam?
Yep.
Okay. In that case, I would accept the motion to adjourn. Thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Tony? All in favor? You can leave the meeting. We'll see you next time. Thank
Thank
you
you,
all.
Randy.
everyone.